Good morning, Hacksters. It's my favorite time of the week. It's Hackster Café. We get to talk to an awesome person who's building cool hardware stuff. And this week is extra special because our guest is Kevin Bates, who is not only the creator of the Arduboy, which we'll talk about in a second, but also now the contest manager at Hackster. So welcome, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Happy to be here. Watched your shows before, and it's exciting to be finally on it.
How's it going? How's your morning going?
It's good. I am actually currently relocating to San Francisco, so things are a little bit hectic for me. But yeah, it's excited to speak with you here today.
Yeah. So what is the Arduboy, first off? This is sort of the thing that you're probably most known for, unless there's something else that I'm not aware of.
No, I'll show you the original. I got a few
Oh,
items for show and tell, but
yeah.
this is the original Arduboy,
That's
and
beautiful.
it was a project of mine, like an art project of mine that I created, where it's just the circuit board, but I milled out some holes in it to actually house the components in it, so you can see that the OLED and everything. This one's run out of batteries some time ago, but this broke the internet back in 2014, and I got such a good response to it that I eventually uh, built this, which is the commercial version. This is something
Yeah,
that I sell, and it's the same thing. So it's a little video game system that you can program with Arduino and put your own programs on and learn to code. And I've been doing that for about 7 years now, actually.
and that is the new FX version, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's right. This is our latest new version, which is the FX. You can see it right on there. And the cool thing about this is it's got over 200 games on it. It's a little bit hard to use backwards, but yeah, it's got all these different categories, and then you can search through these different games, and you press a button, and it
That's so
flashes the
good.
die. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's been a feature that people have been requesting for a long time, but the technical challenges of making it happen was something that was a little bit beyond my skills. But the awesome people in the community actually built a solution, and it's taken me about a year to get it into the production hardware. But yeah, I'm really
Wow.
excited. We're shipping those now. Actually, I'm in the process of finishing up shipping for about 1,000 pre-orders that we received over the past year.
Wow. One of the cool things I love about the FX is that it is not only available as its own thing, like you've got there, but also you can get a little upgrade in case you have a previous version of the Arduboy. At least you could for a while. You were saying
Oh
something
yeah,
is like,
the mod chip. Yeah, we still have that. I didn't grab one here today, but it's a little flexible circuit board that you can the screws on the back of the Arduboy here. You can actually, if you're so inclined, you can take the original Arduboy and you can undo the screws, and there's some test pads on there in the same way that people would modify maybe their PlayStation or Xbox to be able to run pirated games. Since everything's open source, there's no concern about any of that stuff. So we encourage our users to modify it, add that little bit, and then you get all the games on it. So there's nothing, if you have the old Arduboy and you don't want to buy the new one, you just like to go ahead and upgrade your old one. We have that as an option. We sell those on the site right now without the games for $9, and with including all the games, it comes for $15. So if you don't mind doing a little bit of Python scripting and stuff to load it up yourself, you can save yourself $6.
that's so cool.
And so we
And
got
that's the FX chip itself.
Yeah, it actually has the exact same. It's using a W25Q128, which is a 64 mega or 128 megabit chip. So it has about 6 megabytes or
Mm.
16 megabytes of storage, and the mod chip. They both have that same flash chip. The mod chip has an extra AT-Tiny on there, and that actually programs the bootloader for the 32U4. So
Mm.
that was an extra step that made it kind of difficult. And originally, I was just planning on selling the mod chip. So I was originally just planning on releasing the mod chip and letting the community do it themselves. But I received so many orders for people who ordered them as pre-mods. So like I would do the work for them, that I became overwhelmed, and I actually had to go into serial production. I got something like 400 orders in the first week, and I did the
Dang.
math. It would take me a few months to build those anyways. So yeah, we're actually looking at doing our second production of the FX. So another 1,000 units is going to be on the way pretty soon because I'm almost sold out.
Awesome. So we have a question from Salman that actually leads into what we were going to cover here today, which is your journey from maker to hardware entrepreneur, which I think is a really fascinating story I've heard a little bit about. But let's start at the beginning. Yeah. Where did you first get experience with microcontrollers?
So Gosh, that's actually kind of a funny story. I mean, my first experience is not hands-on actually. The first experience I got was actually just it was in the household. So my dad
Huh.
is kind of, I guess, before the term maker or whatever, but he was an entrepreneur in the medical technology industry.
Huh.
And so he had a little lab in his house. He was always working on stuff and building things. And so he was, building components with wire wrap and
Wow.
circuits like before I even really knew what they were. So I had an idea that that's something that people can do on their own. I just never really understood it. So the stage that he was at, though, was back in the day where you actually had to use like huge, massive programmers to program your chips, and you had to use like infrared to erase them, and then you
Whoa,
could only get
yeah.
one write cycle. And so for me, it was always it felt like such a big thing to handle. But actually, the first time I dealt with a microcontroller was at a job that I had well, first hands-on experience, I would say, is when I was working at a company called Vestas. So I used to work at a company that was the world's largest manufacturer of wind turbines. I've got a couple
I
pictures
got
here.
this.
Yeah, so this is me on top of a wind turbine that's about 150 feet tall.
Wow.
Whoops,
Oh no.
it's not letting me.
Technology.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back to I'm gonna have to close the window here real quick. Sorry.
That's cool.
It's not letting me scroll left and right. Share screen.
Here we
Okay, I
go.
got it up again. Yeah, switch to it. The little. I think it's not letting me go
No.
left and right.
That's a sweet picture, though.
Yeah, I got another one here too. I guess we're having some technical difficulties here. Share screen.
It always happens.
Okay, there we go. Okay, try now.
We have some good feedback.
Yeah, so this is me on the top of one of these
What?
guys. So this is me here actually, and so you can see these other ones in the background. So this goes 150 feet up in the air. And actually, when I was doing all this work, these are multi-million dollar machines. These are like 2 3
Yeah,
million dollar machines.
understandable.
And I thought for sure they'd be powered by some supercomputer or some really kind of fancy, $1,000, thousands of dollars machine. But it actually turns out these are controlled by microcontrollers. These are controlled, some of them by like little 8-bit things, and even the early ones were controlled by actual relay computers, like just state machines. And that kind of
Dang.
fascinated me how you could control such a huge piece of machinery with just something that was so small and like simple. And so that's when I first started learning about microcontrollers, was actually through the work. But when I started working on these wind turbines, um, that's the same time that Arduino was becoming popular. And so I wanted to do it at home. So I was learning how to do it on these giant machines, but I'm like, okay, now I want to do
Yeah.
it myself. I want to control my own motors and blink my own LEDs and stuff like that. So I ended up I bought an Arduino, and I started doing all those basic learning to do a blink sketch. I think the first time I got an LED blinking, I jumped up and was dancing around the room and pretty excited about it, and then started doing some motors and different things like that. So just the projects, I think, just like anybody else, kept expanding and expanding, and it got to the point where I was starting to build my own circuit board. Actually, I have. This is probably the first thing that I was
Whoa.
working on that's kind of sort of maybe looked like an Arduino or an Arduboy. Um, this was a project that I started working on because I was building these little simple LED blinking projects. Well, a friend of mine, he bought a boat and it had a leak in the boat. And he was having to go to the boat every day to check it to see basically if the boat was sinking.
Ah.
And so I told him, I'm like, hey, I can actually build something that has a GSM or like a SIM card in it and
Mhm.
has a water sensor. And so if it detects any water, it'll just send you a text message. He was like, oh man, that not only would that be really useful for me, but like there's other people that have this problem or similar problems, so that they could like basically remote control their boat for certain reasons. So hidden within here is actually it's just an Arduino Uno, but it's got a custom made shield with a SIM 800 unit, and it's all crammed inside this waterproof box. And yeah, so I built this for him, and actually I never ended up testing or using it because I got so distracted with other projects. But you can start to see that actually this does start to inform the industrial design of the Arduboy, the idea of having like a clear front with the display hidden behind it
Yeah.
with the buttons, and it's all self-contained. So this was a fun project that I built, and it sufficiently looks like it's a bomb. So this is like a good one not to take to the airport.
I mean, but you do actually, I mean, they recommend having like a clear case if you have to go through customs or whatever, just so that they can see that there's nothing like, you know, C4 inside or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
I've never tried, but then this is
oh,
another project. I realize the battery's dead on it now, but this is the first gaming console that I made
oh my
actually. If I
gosh.
can get it to focus on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so what this is a Arduino Pro Micro lithium charger, a really small OLED display, and it's got the little BlackBerry thing. And this actually plays Tetris. So like the blocks come falling down, and you can move them, and you can click and stuff like that. And it's got a battery fell out of it. Okay, there's no battery. There's no battery in it. But this was the first time that I actually like did something, and I took this around and showed friends, and that really got a big like response. And so these projects just kind of snowballed. Every time I made a project, I put it on YouTube, and then when I finally made this Arduboy prototype, I put it on YouTube, and it went viral.
Mm.
I had thousands of people asking me, "Can I buy one?" And that was overwhelming. Actually, in the beginning, I didn't even want to build it. In the beginning, I thought, there's too many pieces of plastic in the world already.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other game systems that are out there. I don't want to compete with Game Boy or these other like really cheap systems. And so I was kind of thinking, the internet's a crazy place, right? Like I know people's cats do crazy things, and then they just get, viral. So I just was trying to take it in stride and just enjoy it. But my dad was talking to me, and he told me, um, he reminded me about the education ability of it. The fact that where it's become so successful now is, and it seems so easy in hindsight, the fact that you can learn with it. So it's a system that people can pick up, or they can buy, and they can learn how to
Absolutely.
make their own games.
It's wonderful. It's a little self-contained thing. It's got a little piezo speaker. It's got buttons. It's got a little screen. Like that was one of my first experiences programming on a screen. I actually did a project where it was like a little meditation timer that will run in during the day in the background and will like give you a little beep every like 15 minutes to sort of check for mindfulness. It's like perfect for little things like that where you just need like just having the buttons and the screen and the little piezo and the little LEDs that you can do for notifications and stuff and timings.
Hmm.
It's perfect. Not just for games, but for all kinds of like minimal projects.
That was the idea, was in order to provide, basically, it was thinking of the minimum viable platform. Actually, the whole thing of it resembling like a Game Boy or whatever was completely accidental. I actually just started with the size of a credit card because I wanted it to fit in the wallet, because whenever like I have these big projects and they're like,
Right.
you take them in a Tupperware box or something, like they're very difficult to show off to people. So the whole idea was somebody would ask me what I do, and I could just pull out this system and then say here. And so I figured it needed an up, down, and left and right to navigate a menu, and then an OK and a cancel. And I had these buttons kind of all over the place originally, but the it was like kind of a natural layout.
Yeah.
So I started prototyping. I actually have some pictures of some stuff that I started
Ooh,
um, building here. Sorry about the
no problem.
So if you switch to the screen that I've got here, this
Look
was
at
actually
this.
the first 3D printed design that I'd made to kind of transition from being a PCB by itself to having actual mechanical buttons. Because the original one had, like, it just has capacitive buttons,
Mm.
and then also the battery is soldered in. And so the advantage of that 3D printed design is that it has uh, mechanical buttons, and it has what I thought would be a neat idea, a little tray to replace the coin cell battery.
Yeah.
But I realized over time that the coin cell battery wasn't going to work. So so basically I got it to this step right here, and it got to the point where maybe people were starting to wonder, it's like, okay, then what, right? And that's kind of the same question that I had. Is I had what I thought was like a prototype, something that I could get manufactured, but how do you do that? Like, how do you get a copy machine for
How do
physical
you?
product?
Tell us, Kevin.
Um, well, I thought money was the answer. Actually, I thought money was how you do it.
Huh.
I went to investors and I just asked. I said, "Hey, can I have some money?" and I got this idea, and I figured that if I had enough money, I could just hire people or I could find a contractor or whatever. But actually, I had an interesting conversation. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Abadan Ross.
Oh,
I think he has Root Ventures right now as his VC
yeah.
firm right now.
He's a Hackster friend.
He's a great guy. He gave me a lot of really good advice in the beginning, and actually, he was one of the people I was kind of pitching to. I knew him through I think they were Spark at the time, the Particle.
Mm-hmm.
He was an investor for them, and he put me in contact. I asked him for money. He said, "Do you really need money, or what is it that you need?" And actually, I'd already had an angel investor come in, but I had money, and so I said, "Well, I just need this product." And he said, "Have you heard of this place called Hacks?" And Hacks, or Accelerator at the time, was a incubator, like a hardware accelerator, where you pitch your idea. They accept a certain number of people every season, and they give you some investment, and they bring you over to this magical place called Shenzhen, and
Mm.
that's in China. That's in the Pearl Delta, and I went to go live in China for 4 months, actually on and off for remaining 2 years. But Hacks was
Wow.
instrumental in getting the introductions I need to the contract manufacturers, to the mold makers, to the engineers. They gave me resources for legal and financing and all this other stuff. So that was great because all these questions that I had, there was somebody who was part of the team that had an answer, and I had a workspace in China. Um, and yeah, I basically used their help to then launch a Kickstarter. Um, I launched a Kickstarter in the beginning of 2015. There it is right there. It was super successful. It got about $500,000. And
Yeah.
during the course of that, I selected Seed Studio to be the contract manufacturer. So the actual process of getting it made, once I had got to that stage, like there was so much detail as far as like making connections and finding the right people. But once I met Seed Studio, I basically just handed over the PCB files. I handed over the 3D files that I had for my prototype, and they really did the rest, which is great. You can go everywhere in between. That's like a full service contract manufacturer. If
Hmm.
I would have done a little more work myself, then I would have had one factory make the injection molding, and I would have worked very detailed with them to make sure there was no defects or anything. And then I would have worked with the PCB fab, and then the final assembly fab, and then that would have all been managed at the high level by me, which is one way you can go to maybe save a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But I recommend Seed Studio really to virtually everybody who has some kind of like maker type project. And they can provide a lot of the same services that Hacks did, actually. I'd even be talking to Seed Studio before Hacks, but
Huh.
Hacks allowed me to amplify my message and really get the Kickstarter going. So I would say, in summary, being able to find the resources of people who've done it before, who can give you advice, and that can be anything from an individual to an organization like Hacks, and finding a really good contract manufacturer that is excited about working with you. That kind of correct fit for the size of the factory and the amount of production that you want to do is real important for
Yeah.
doing
How
it.
did you choose that? You said you chose Seed Studio, but were there like other people you were talking to? How did you know that they were the right choice?
Just that was the part about being in China that was really
Ah.
valuable, was actually going there and meeting with them. And you learn really quick because actually the first place that had quoted me gave me an excellent price. And I went and visited there, and they took me on a taxi ride to a very strange
Huh.
part of town. And it was like in the ghetto, and it was like there's like chemicals like leaking out into the street and like children playing in it. And then I went
Oh
in, and
man.
the safety and the people didn't look happy to be working there and stuff. So I was like, this isn't quite the right fit. I also quoted with AQS. AQS is a similar contract manufacturer to Seed Studio. They don't have a retail presence, but I got recommended them by Bunny Huang,
Oh yeah.
and he's the manufacturer. He did the Chumby, he's done the Novena
We've
laptop,
had him
and
on
he
the show
loves.
before.
Yeah, Bunny's great. He was a mentor of mine through the
Hmm.
Hacks program, and I
Lucky.
picked his. Yeah, I remember one of the first things I said to him. I said, "Bunny, you're my hero," and he's like
Yeah.
kind of sitting there. He's like, "I don't know how to react to that." but yeah, I coded with AQS, I coded with Seed Studio, I coded with a few other ones. But actually, at the end of the day, it was the fact when I toured the factory with Seed Studio, everybody seemed really happy to be there. They were like smiles on their faces. They interacted with me. Um, they, I remember it wasn't me, but I sent one of my representatives there to do some work, and they were actually having like, I don't know if it was a Christmas party or like some kind of holiday where they were all dressed in costumes and stuff like that. So I'm like, this is a good fit. And in addition to that, they're also a distributor of mine. So in addition to manufacturing it, they actually sell Arduboy themselves, and they also sell it to distributors all around the world. So,
That's so cool.
anybody who carries Seed Studio products can also carry the Arduboy FX, and they actually sell more than I do, like directly through Arduboy.com. There's more that goes like, so for example, Adafruit, Pimeroni, um, Robot Shop, those all buy directly from Seed Studio, and I receive royalty payments, which is a great relationship. It's very hands off.
That's nice. Yeah, very passive.
People who are worried about doing fulfillment or anything else, those kinds of relationships can help out a lot.
We have a question from our own Jessica, who says, "Did you have a finished, viable product before launching on Kickstarter?"
Yeah, I did. The Kickstarter was launched with something pretty similar to that. The only change, the major changes that I had were that what did I change? I added a RGB LED. Originally, it only had just a red LED.
Oh yeah.
I changed the screws in the back to having what they're called molded inserts. I don't know if I'll be able to get a good picture of it, but the front case has basically nuts that are inserted into the injection mold, so that when you put the screw in, that it's got a metal to metal contact. Originally, I just had like a self-tapping screw, which would wear away at the PC. So if you use the screw more than maybe 2 or 3 times, it would be damaged. So this way you can assemble and disassemble this as many times as you need, and without fear of it. Other changes, I think that was about it. So actually, I came to Kickstarter pretty much with the finish. I only had to change a few details. What took the most time through all of that was small little changes, doing what do you call, like, certification. So we had to go through FCC certification. We went through like static electricity, making sure that it didn't get exploded because of static electricity. We did drop testing. We did a lot of stuff like that, verifications, and that took a lot of time to do, actually, mainly because I was producing a lot. The first batch was going to be 10,000 units, and the concern over producing so many units and then people getting it and not working, it really made me focus on doing the right job in the first place. It's not like software, because like I had a lot of advice from software people or whatever, but they could, it's like you can patch.
You can just be like, ship it, and we'll update it later. But wow, it sounds
pretty much finished. I actually had it pretty much all the way there when I got to Hacks. Actually, the main things that I added at Hacks was the metal back and the rechargeable battery. Oh, actually, and there were actually some pretty interesting learnings. So I originally had a 328P, and I was expecting people to program it through a FTDI adapter. And I remember I made a few samples and I gave it to people in the cohort, like the other teams that were working there, and they didn't have those things. Or one of them was talking about, like, well, what if you have like a game jam where you give out a bunch of these to people, and then you're gonna have to be like swapping FTD. Like, if you just plugged in. So I switched to the 32U4 because that had native USB. And that was feedback from people that I was interacting with. Like, the FTDI is like, it's too much. Like, people aren't going to want to have to buy that extra. Then going with the metal back, I was really concerned about getting it as thin as possible. And I was talking with somebody, and I was just like racking my brain to be like over every little last millimeter. And he's like, dude, no one's going to care if it's 2 millimeters thicker, and it's going to solve all your problems. So just do that. And I was just like, okay. And so I added the metal back. And the rechargeable battery, actually, that's probably another interesting one too, is while I did have the rechargeable battery in the product at the time of the Kickstarter, I had no idea how much it was going to cost me. The one sample that I bought was $24, and I was just completely guessing that I could get that price down to about $1. Thankfully, I was able to do that. But at the time the Kickstarter launches, I was just I was a shot in the dark, and it all ended up, thankfully it all ended up working out, and I didn't have to like raise the price or refund people's orders or anything like that.
Because they're these really thin, specialized batteries, right?
Yeah, the batteries originally were something that were available in like quantity one, like yes, at like $25 each, and those were basically handmade samples from the battery
Whoa.
manufacturer. And so I had taken that sample and I actually went to a different factory and I said, "Can you make these?" And they're like, "Sure." And yeah, for us, it was a custom made battery that we had to go and put through CE certification so that it wouldn't catch fire or anything like that. But yeah, people are really. I wish I had one separate, but it's only 1 millimeter thick battery. It's a single cell lithium ion battery, and part of that was the fact that I also had to design the battery protection circuit, which lives on this side of the Arduboy. All these
Ah.
are like my own made battery protection circuit. Um, I guess that was something that I also added during the Kickstarter because originally I'd used a module, but it didn't fit. So
Hmm.
yeah,
We have
actually, most of it was ready by the time I had the Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah. We have questions about how much things are, and just so you know, there's links in the description below if you want to go check out the website. You can find out for yourself. The Arduboy is $54 right now. The FX mod chip, as you said earlier, Kevin, it varies based on if you want games on it or not. But that's an interesting point. Like, how do you arrive at the pricing?
Uh, well, there's kind of like the where I would start. I was actually thinking about this earlier. Where I would start when you're doing pricing on stuff is in general you look at how much it's going to cost you, and then a safe number is 3 times the cost of the product. And that what that does is that accounts in generality it accounts for your overhead. It accounts for shipping costs. It accounts for the packaging. It accounts for the people that are going to return it, shipments
Mm.
that get lost. But in general, business is like if you take the cost of something and go 3 times, and that's like working backwards from what you should actually do is calculate all that stuff. It'd be like, okay, how much am I spending per month on salary? How much am I spending per month on shipping? How much am I spending per month on all this stuff? How
Yeah.
many units do I sell per month? And then you do all the calculus involved in figuring that out. And that'll allow you to tell you, says, okay, I'm building enough profit into that. Usually when products start getting cheaper, you kind of have to squeeze that a little bit more. When I was selling the Arduboy on the Kickstarter for $29, that was
Oh, wow.
much much less than 3 times. But because I was guaranteed getting that volume, and
Mm.
because there was a lot of ability to save money because it was being all sent out as one batch.
Right.
And then for the mod chips, I'm also part of selling those at a discount, mainly to generate interest, kind of like as a thank you for people who've already built it before.
Hmm.
But generally, I take the cost and then I times by 3, and then I try to peel it back a little bit to hit a price point that I think is gonna move. Um, but that's generally where that's how I do the pricing on it. But yeah, the mod chip without games is $9, and if you want to have the games pre-installed, it's 15. I don't have any of those in stock right now because I have the mod chips in stock, but I actually have to program them. I have some programming jigs that I
Ah.
use.
Oh,
Just
did you
one of
make them
these.
yourself?
No, actually, yeah, I did. Here, I'm gonna grab it real quick.
Sure. Oh, yeah, getting into the meat.
Going off camera, I had to run across the room. Wasn't planning on
It's
showing it,
cool.
but it's
Oh, look
actually
at
got a
that.
little bit of dust on it because I haven't been using it in a while, so I have to clean that off. But what this is a programming jig. So it's got these pins on it, and it's got this clamp. So I
Ooh.
put in 3 mod chips at a time in here, and if you can see, there's
Wow,
actually like a
yeah.
cityscape on the on this PCB, which like aligns it to the board, and that's actually my artist rendition of Portland,
Yeah.
downtown
Oh,
Portland.
no way.
Yeah, it's kind of an artistic license on there. But
Ha ha ha.
yeah, so you put in 3 mod chips, you put it in, and you push this button, and then it goes through and it programs those. And I have 3 of these test jigs.
Hmm.
I have 3 of those test jigs, and so I can program them continuously. So by the time the first test jig is done, I can go back to it. And it takes me about do 9 every 2 minutes or something like that.
Whoa.
And I've got like 200 or 300 orders. So It's going to take me a while. So yeah, so some of the stuff like that's not being produced by Seed Studio. Those I actually built and produced on my own. So that's kind of like a middle ground for people who want to do stuff on their own. I used a fulfillment service called PCBWay,
Oh yeah.
and they have an assembly service. So I sent them the design file, I sent them the bill of materials. They came back with like a quote. I paid online. They shipped it to me, and it was fully assembled. I asked them about them programming it, but they wanted to charge me way more than what it would take
Mm.
me on my own to do. But there's somebody else that I can recommend. They've actually sponsored the latest batch of production, so I'm
Oh
happy
cool.
to give them a little bit of a bump. But yeah, so I'll be
PCB.
going through and using this test jig. It goes. I should definitely say that a lot of this work for the FX and then specifically these test jigs were the result of a specific community user. His name on the community is called Mr. Blinky. Um, but he's been absolutely instrumental. He came up with all the code for the FX, the bootloader, and he helped me build these test jigs. And
Wow.
he's helped me with just a lot of, I guess you should say, moral support. So
Hmm.
he's been really awesome and helpful, and him with another couple of users on the community. Probably give him a shout out, but Parap and MLXXXP. But yeah, there's a couple of moderators on our community forum that just kill it. They're always answering people's questions, and yeah, open source development for the win. Yeah, and so much of the work that's been for Arduboy has been the result of all the communities. I mean, all the games have been made. All the 200 games have been made by other people in the community. So I feel very, very lucky to have their support.
Speaking of which, actually, you've got a contest running on Hackster right now.
Yeah, it's a
I
good
might as well
segue.
plug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm encouraging our community users over the years is to go ahead and build their own. So I've made, since the Arduboy is open source, people have made and built their own Arduboys even before the Kickstarter launched. During the Kickstarter, one of these users said, hey, here's the schematics, here's how you can go on AliExpress or eBay and buy these components
Hmm.
and build it yourself. And so over the years, I just kind of let that do its own thing. But now that I'm working at
So cool.
Hackster, I thought it was a cool opportunity to celebrate all this exciting work that other people have done by running a contest and actually saying, hey, if you want to go ahead and do something, build your own Arduboy, you can win the new FX, or you can even, like as a door prize, we got 20 other regular Arduboys and some mod chips being given out. And yeah, it's kind of my way to give back to the community and say thanks for getting me this far. And I'm real excited to be part of the Hackster team. And I think bringing a bunch of
Yeah.
new projects onto the site for the games. I mean, actually, even before I did this contest, Hackster had about a dozen or more Arduboys already on there. So
That's
yeah,
so cool.
definitely. If you're looking for, it can be as easy. One of the cool things about the challenges, it can be an easy or as difficult as you want it to be. You can technically compete with just building it on a breadboard if you want,
Ah,
just hooking it up and making it work, or you can make your own custom PCB. And you can. I'm giving extra bonus points if you use a new kind of microcontroller or a new kind of screen. You get
ooh,
additional
yeah.
bonus points. But I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people to win. So if you're looking for a fun little project to do over the weekend or maybe a little bit more, definitely participate.
Cool. And that kind of brings us full circle back to you working at Hackster. So you've gone through this. You started out playing with microcontrollers, with seeing your dad working on them. You worked at the wind turbine place, got into Arduino, built the Arduboy, and now you're here. You're still doing
Yeah,
Arduboy, which is awesome. And tell us about your deal with Hackster.
yeah. So basically, kind of, I guess the easiest way to tell the story was at the beginning of this year, I had been building some fun projects like the Arduino Nano and the glasses, which I realized are now in the other room. But
Oh
I
yeah.
built a little Arduboy that is about the size of a quarter, and then I built some glasses that are made out of PCBs. But those are projects that Hackster covered in the news, and basically we started to have a conversation about. We got in touch and started to talk about what I was doing, and I found out that there was a position. I think it was actually you that had tweeted out that there was a job opening at Hackster around this same time,
Good job, mate.
and
I take full credit.
yeah, networking. right? But yeah, I saw the tweet that you sent out, and I said, maybe there's some synergy here. And what for me, what it's about is the fact that being able to create a platform over the past few years, I kind of accidentally created a platform for people to make their own electronics, learn about um, microcontrollers, learn about programming in C++, and I've just seen the way that it's changed people's lives. I've got dozens of emails from people who said similar stories, like, um, I built my own Arduboy and I made a game for it, and I brought it to my family's Christmas party and showed someone that they got impressed, and then they offered me a job, and now I'm working as a video game developer.
That's so cool.
My dreams have been fulfilled. And that person isn't alone. There's been a lot of people that have given me these kinds of stories, and I'm sure there's more that I haven't heard about. And that's been a really gives me a lot of satisfaction and kind of gives me the energy to keep doing it year after year. And with this opportunity at Hackster, we talked about like that. It expands that opportunity. So now it's about allowing more people to have that same kind of experience, because it's not limited to just one device, one chipset, one kind of platform. That now we get to work with industry partners all around the world. We're running contests right now with Nordic, who I've used their chips before. We just finished some machine learning ones with Sentinel and QuickLogic. We've got ones with TinyML. We're running all these big brands, and it's really exciting to work with them because these are people who I have, asked for development kits from before, and now I get to work on the other side, helping other people. Like, we're giving out the development kits now.
Yeah.
Like, we're helping people identify, hey, I've got a cool idea and I want to make something with it. We'll throw some circuit boards at you and see what you can come up with. And I think the prospect of running those kinds of competitions is actually very interesting to me. I've been doing game jams with the Arduboy community, which is probably
Oh,
what is most similar for me. So from time to time, we'll say, here's a theme. We got a month. Go ahead and make a game that fits this theme, and we'll all vote on it, and the winner gets some prizes. And so, same kind of thing, just now we're dealing with the hardware, and it's exciting for me. Like, I'm going to be going through and judging one of the contests, or starting the process of judging one of the contests today, and I'm blown away with the amount of energy and the amount of work that people put into these things, and it's really exciting to be able to be a part of that and to kind of raise awareness, raise the tide, or I don't know the right expression for it, but it's really kind of increase the amount of excitement and fun around making and building your own electronics.
yeah.
I think it allows people to develop the skills of creative thinking, problem solving, communication, setting your own goals for yourself and meeting those goals, and kind of
Mm.
the cycles that those create. And I think those are the kinds of things that maybe aren't taught in traditional classroom
Yeah,
environments.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe teachers are trying, but those are the kinds of things that I actually do think make a difference in this world. I think the more people that are out there who can think critically and solve their own problems instead of having to just buy a new piece of hardware, maybe they can repair it, maybe they can modify it. I think is going to be more important as time goes on, and more of our things. It's similar to, like, in previous generations, like learning how to work on your own car so that
Yeah.
if you get stuck somewhere, you can fix it. It's something kind of similar to that.
Especially what you say about learning sort of how to learn and, like, how to structure a project, these things that are, like, really not taught so much, and we've really got that, and then with the contest, you're sort of rewarding people for going through that, so it's like an extra incentive beyond, like, helping people discover their natural curiosity about this kind of stuff and their natural enthusiasm for it by just giving them a little push, and it's just like an enabling platform, right? It's so good.
Yeah, that's what I like about Hackster, is that I recognize that it's a place where people have a unique opportunity to kind of present their work. I mean, there are sites that are out there that I've used before for documenting projects, like GitHub,
Mm,
which work. They're great for collaborative development when you're actually trying to build something, you want other people's input. But one of the things that GitHub doesn't do very well is have, like, social features. If you're building the page, the README page, you really have to get kind of creative with how you build it so that it actually looks like something that you can present, kind of like hack it a
right.
little bit. But with Hackster, it's designed from the get-go. The social features are built in, the ability to easily add images and video and stuff into like a WYSIWYG editor. Um, it's a good one too. Like I've used the Kickstarter's platform, and it it can give you head trying to like add images and stuff like that. So the Hackster platform's designed, and then one of the things I really like about it too is the fact that when you post a project on Hackster, even outside of a contest, it gives we're always looking for like really cool projects. So they get featured, news stories get written on them. We share them on social media. So it's a great platform for kind of a smaller version of maybe what happened to me. Like my exposure to the internet was like a organic one, but it went viral very quickly.
Mm.
Um, Being able to put your project in a place that you know is going to have eyeballs on it means that it is going to be elevated to a certain level just inherently by like the quality that you present in your own project. You don't need to work so hard to like email a bunch of blogs and say, hey, can you cover my article, can you cover my thing, because when you post it on the page and it's a good quality thing, it's going to show up on our site. The more likes that it gets, we'll move it up towards the trending thing. So it's an organic way of kind of like back to what I was saying before. I like to say that it's kind of like bringing your project to the pub in a Tupperware box, but on the internet in front of millions of people is kind of
Yeah.
the experience. It's like,
Some more solid feedback. Hendra says, Arduboy clone is my first PCB I ever designed, and I'm inspired more to learn more and make PCBs. That's so cool. That's
I love
gold.
reading those kinds
That's
of
the gold
feedback.
right there. That's like what it's
Mhm.
all about.
Yeah, I love to hear that people are doing something for the first time. I actually really enjoy making PCBs. I feel like I'm playing like a little version of SimCity or something like that.
Yeah, it's really fun. Like once you get the basics down, it can be pretty challenging. Like, do you use KiCad or Eagle or?
I use Eagle. I use EagleCAD just because of I got started downloading like the libraries from Adafruit and SparkFun.
Hmm.
Adafruit probably one. Lamora over there runs an amazing business. I probably got to give a real strong shout out to the work that she's done over there because
Adafruit.
without Adafruit, there would be no Artiboy, 100%.
Oh,
Because
nice.
all of the stuff that I learned, all this like self-directed learning that I did for myself, was almost entirely based around the tutorials and the materials that they provide. Like every component that they sell, or every board that they sell on their site, you can download the schematic and download the board layout and make it yourself.
Oh
Really,
yeah.
I just downloaded their I got actually it was a combination of SparkFun and Adafruit, but I got Adafruit's OLED breakout and I got SparkFun's Pro Micro,
Ha.
and then I opened them up in Eagle CAD and then just like together, and that was the first prototype. But yeah, I use Eagle. It's great because you get a lot of open source libraries. I would probably recommend people who are getting started now to check out KiCad, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah,
Um,
uh, just I learned that it was made by people in France, so they recommend people say KiCad. I used to say KiCad, and this has been a thing. I'm like retraining myself. So.
yeah, it's like GIF or GIF. You know, there's these debates online. There's
Oh, for
a
sure.
there's an expression, Buddhist expression that says words are merely a fishing pole for ideas. Once you have the idea, you no longer need the pole. So
Oh.
as long as you get the idea across, that's what's important about it. But yeah, I think that KiCad is probably a great place for people to get started. It's in a lot better development state than it was like 5 6 years ago. Eagle, while it's been purchased by AutoCAD, is not is falling behind a little bit on active development. Then there's of
Plus,
course there's
it's
Altium.
free.
It's free. Eagle's free too. I would say
Oh.
do Eagle if you really are not planning on ever going beyond just making little fun projects for yourself. If you ever plan on doing something that you want to produce or make, I would say do KiCad and then even take a look at Altium.
Mm,
Um, the kind of concern that you have is when you start developing in one thing, you kind of want to stay with it. And
yeah.
if you want to do more advanced features, like, I mean, Altium has insane features. You can do everything in Altium that you can do on like that they build the iPhone with or whatever, where you could do embedded components, you can do, um, you know, RF, traces and things like that. But Eagle's great for open source. It's a great place to get started. But if you
Hmm.
find that like you hit some limits, you can learn, you can kind of expect that.
Mm. Cool. So, if you could build anything, oh well, let's start with something a little easier. What's
Hmm.
next in your mind for Arduboy? Obviously, do you think that something will come out of this contest that will like spark a new thing, or is the community
Maybe
itself?
wouldn't that be cool?
Mm.
So I'm interested in seeing what opportunity there is to kind of take it to the next step. And for me, what that next step is further democratizing the platform. I want to, like, ideally for me, what I've always wanted to do with Arduboy is turn it into something that can be more of a white label or agnostic device so that it can
Mm.
be given out by other brands. So one of the
Mm.
things that I have done along the way is I licensed the technology to a company
Ha!
that made a series of these. Like this is the Oregon Trail.
Ha! No
Also,
way!
yeah, we also have Space Invaders and Tetris and Micro Arcade. So I don't actually manufacture these or really have much to do with them other than I license the technology to them, and they went and produced these. And these you can buy. They only paid they only cost $10, or excuse me, $20, but they are colored, so that's kind of cool. And they only play one game. But
Mm.
um, this is an example of my kind of bigger picture. Is I would like to get the price point down so companies can give them away for free.
Mm.
Uh, I'd like to give them away for free to schools.
Yeah.
So following a business model, something like you may be familiar with the BBC Microbit has done, where they received corporate sponsorship to be able to give away million. I guess it was government sponsorship, give away
Mm.
million to all the students in Great Britain or in the UK. I don't know if it was.
I think it was in one class in the UK, like one
But
class
yeah,
level.
they gave out a bunch, and so those kinds of ideas. I want to get it to the point where it's not something that necessarily sustains my um, like necessarily the company. I want to turn it into something that it like the contest helps to start that. Is I'm trying to get it out there so it becomes more of just a true platform for making games and development and less even focused on Artiboy. Like I'm even open to changing the name to being something just completely generic.
Mm.
But yeah, something like that. I don't know. I don't know exactly what that means totally. I just want to get it cheaper and get it more affordable and make it more basic and get it into more people's hands because
Awesome.
I think that like for me, I don't see like adding the color screen or adding more features or doing things like that. I'm not necessarily interested in because I think it starts to compete with there's a lot of other stuff out there. There's all these game systems that run
Right.
on Linux, run on like the Raspberry Pi. They can easily do all that stuff. So I think I want to try to continue to offer this real specific thing, but just make it
Mm.
more available to people.
Sweet. And then before we wrap up, and I'm gonna give you a chance to throw in there whatever you like, but yeah, I have to ask, what if you could build anything right now? What would you do?
Build anything winning right now. Um,
No limits. Moonbase.
I
I don't
think.
know.
I mean, so I want to give two answers. So one is something that's just on my mind all the time. It's not necessarily anything I actually want to necessarily do as like a business or whatever. But I started in the automotive world. So I started doing like turbo kits and exhaust systems and
Oh,
lowering kits, all that Fast and Furious stuff.
no way.
That's where I got started out of college. I helped run a shop, modification shop, to do all that stuff.
That's so cool.
Um, but that's one thing I've always wanted to do is like from the ground up, like unlimited budget, just to build like a custom car all the way and have all these neat little tricks and bells and whistles and
Oh
stuff like
man.
that. So you see at car shows where they've done it, so it does all sorts of neat stuff. I'd like to do that, but that's kind
Mm.
of like a selfish. That's like a selfish
You're
goal.
allowed to be selfish, but what's the other one?
The more the more this the one that fits more into like my bigger picture is actually one of the things I've always wanted to do is do installation art.
Oh,
So kind of do the same kind of build PCBs and stuff like that, but get that into art gallery, museum, lobbies of hotels, city buildings, stuff like that. The best example that I've got, I don't remember the person's name offhand, but he is a artist who does that kind of stuff, and he created, I think it was his graduate program or his graduate project or something like that. But he'd created a circuit board, a PCB that mimicked a candle, and it wasn't just like a blinking LED, but it was actually got a matrix with LEDs. And I think, used machine learning. He like pointed a camera at a candle,
huh.
and then used machine learning to kind of like create a model of the flame and then you put that into a microcontroller, and so now you've got this little PCB candle that quite convincingly looks like a real flame. And these are installed in some very high-end hotels. Like I saw it actually in a hotel in Singapore, and they had hundreds of these things hung from the ceiling. And from a distance, they just look like
Ah.
there's candles hanging there. But then you get a little bit closer, and you can see there's a full PCB, and the power comes down through. There's two wires that suspend it, and they come. So that kind of stuff, I think. Or you can
Sounds
see in other
lovely.
places they've got motion activated stuff with motors and those kinds of things. But I've always envied those types of people who are able to have the freedom, like have a budget from a third. Again, like back to that same idea of finding a sponsor or whatever, but coming up with
Mm.
a project that exposes more people to an interactive type thing. So that's where I'd like to be, maybe in 5 or 10 years, something like that, building art installations. So if there's anybody out there who needs a exhibit for their lobby of their hotel, let me know.
Oh yeah, sweet. Well, uh, we've got places for people to follow you and see what comes next. We've got your Twitter, which is
Mhm.
linked in the description below. Bates, Kecom. Is your middle name like what is it? I
Oh
don't know.
yeah,
What
so
does your
that's the
username
user.
mean?
Yeah, so the username came actually. It was my username that was given to me in high school. Like, it's my
Ah,
last name plus the first two letters of my first name. So it's just like it was really basic. It's like
Bates.
my high school like IT administrator is responsible
Oh.
for whatever reason. Like uh, it, several of my friends, we all got these usernames, and they kind of turned into like I'm trying to remember the other one. The one that I remember is my friend Lauren Bruns. He got Brunslow, and so he
That's pretty good.
became I just called him Brunslow, and he called me Batesky, and it just kind of became my nickname after that.
It sounds like
Um,
a comedy duo.
yeah, well, that's me and Lauren's a whole other story, but
Okay, cool.
I feel blessed because of the number of friends that I've had since high school. He's off being a astrophysicist,
Whoa.
detecting dark matter. So
What? That's
yeah,
super cool. Oh, crime
yeah.
fighting future space duo. Amazing. So you can find Kevin on Twitter there. You can go to arduboy.com. And of course, go to hackster.io/contests and find the
Oh yeah.
DIY Arduboy contest. We can't wait to see what more stuff you do. Is there anything you'd like to throw in there before we wrap up? Any other pluggables?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I really think that the people should check out Hackster contests in general. Like, don't just be limited to the Artiboy contest. We've got a few
For
more
sure.
going on that you can participate. There's one that's really exciting. It's an international contest sponsored by Google, where you can enter to win as much as I think the number one prize is like $15,000 or $5,000 or something like that. It's the China US Maker Competition. Unfortunately, with the travel restrictions, they used to in the past actually send the winners out to compete in person. It's a virtual thing now, but yeah, total $60,000. Like the first place
Dang.
for the global competition can win $15,000, and I think was it last year or the previous year? It was actually one of the finalists that went through the Hackster contest, because we've run this previous years, but I think it was 2 years ago somebody that had submitted through Hackster went all the way through and won the final prize. So
Was that Peter
um,
Ma? That sounds like a Peter Ma thing.
I think so. I think so.
In water
And
AI.
so yeah, I mean, in general, I think again, just reinforcing that's the reason why I joined Hackster, is that
Yeah.
it fits the same purpose that I've been on all along. Is this whole idea? Like I said from the very beginning, I didn't even want to do Artiboy, but it was my dad that said this is an incredible opportunity to introduce people who wouldn't otherwise be interested in making their own electronics. Maybe they're a gamer, maybe they feel it's all too complicated. But the idea is the experience is that like once you do it, you have this like light bulb go off in your moment, and there's so
Yeah.
much more that you can get your hands dirty on. And so that's what I just want to encourage people to do is go out there, build something, make something, share it on our website, and we'll promote it and uh, celebrate it.
Cool.
And thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Kevin. I think it's clear that you've already inspired so many people, and you're just gonna keep doing it forever, basically. Thanks
Appreciate
again, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you soon. All right, cheers.